There's a courtroom scene in the Bible that almost no one reads as a courtroom scene. Revelation chapter 5, throne room of God, angels everywhere, elders on thrones, 4 living creatures circling, lightning, thunder, a sea of glass, the most glorious setting in all of Scripture. And in the middle of all that glory, a legal crisis unfolds. A document no one can open, not a prophecy, not a vision, not a heavenly letter, a document, sealed, 7 seals, waiting in the right hand of God. The right hand. In ancient symbolism, that's the hand of authority, the hand of executive power, the hand that acts. And when no one steps forward to open it, an old apostle, a man who had survived everything, breaks down in tears, not quiet tears, convulsive weeping, the kind you can't control. This isn't drama for dramatic effect. Something legal is happening, something with consequences. And the question the text raises is uncomfortable. If this is a courtroom scene, what case is being tried? And why does the verdict depend on someone being worthy to open a scroll? That word, worthy, is the key. It's not asking who's powerful enough. It's asking who qualifies. Qualifies for what? That's what we're investigating today. I spent years reading Revelation 5 as a worship scene. The Lamb takes the scroll. Heaven erupts in praise. Beautiful, inspiring, end of story. But when I looked at the details, the format of the document, the legal language, the specific requirements, everything shifted. This isn't just worship, it's a verdict. And the question that emerges is this: why does heaven treat the scroll of Revelation 5 as a legal case? And what does that reveal about who has legitimate claim over the earth? That question will guide us. And the answer requires understanding a legal system that existed in Israel centuries before John ever saw this vision. A system that seems designed for exactly this moment. But first, a question the text plants and doesn't immediately answer. Why does the scroll need to be opened at all? If God holds it, why doesn't he simply declare its contents? Why the search for someone worthy? That question will stay open. The answer, when it comes, changes everything. Revelation 5.1 gives us specific details. And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Stop there. Written inside and on the back. That's not a normal book. That's not how you write a letter. That's not poetry or prophecy format. That's not a heavenly diary. That's a legal document format. Specific, recognizable, with precedent in the ancient world. Archaeologists call these double-written documents, or opisthegraphs. They found them in ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Israel. Some date back centuries before Christ. The complete terms go inside. Every detail, every condition, every requirement, everything needed to execute the agreement. Then the document is rolled and sealed. Wax seals pressed with signet rings, sometimes with 1 seal, sometimes more, depending on the importance of what's inside, depending on who needs to be authorized to open it. On the outside goes a summary, a description of what's inside, an index visible to anyone who handles the document, so you know what you're dealing with before breaking the seals. The seals protect the inner content, guarantee no tampering, prove authenticity. Only the authorized person can break them. Anyone else who tries is violating the document's integrity. What were these documents used for? Property deeds, inheritance records, debt contracts, and something specific, redemption documents. When property was lost and could be recovered, the terms of recovery were sealed inside. The summary outside showed what was at stake, and only the qualified redeemer could break the seals and execute the terms. 7 seals on this scroll, not 1, not 3, 7. In biblical numerology, 7 means completion, perfection, totality. Whatever this document contains, it requires maximum security, maximum seriousness, maximum precision in execution. What kind of property requires 7 seals of protection? We'll find out, but first we need to understand what was lost. Here's where most people miss the connection. If the scroll is a redemption document, Something must have been lost, something that needs to be bought back, something with a legal owner who forfeited their claim. Genesis 1:28 tells us what humanity originally had. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." Dominion. The Hebrew word is rada, rule, reign, exercise authority over. Adam wasn't a tenant on earth. He was the delegated authority, God's representative, the legal administrator of the planet, everything under his jurisdiction, everything under his authority. And that authority, if legal patterns mean anything, could be transferred. How do we know something was transferred? Luke 4:5-6. The temptation in the wilderness. Then the devil, taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, "All this authority I will give you, and their glory, for this has been delivered to me, and I give it to whomever I wish." Read that phrase carefully. This has been delivered to me. Not I stole it, not I conquered it, not I took it by force. It delivered to me. Passive voice, received, transferred. The text suggests a legal transfer occurred. It doesn't explain when or how, but the vocabulary is hard to ignore. And Jesus doesn't contradict him. That silence raises an uncomfortable question. Why not correct Satan if this claim were completely false? The silence, at minimum, suggests the claim has substance. Paul calls Satan the god of this age in 2 Corinthians 4:4. Jesus calls him the ruler of this world in John 12:31. John writes that the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one in 1 John 5:19. The biblical vocabulary, across multiple books, multiple authors, suggests something was transferred, something with legal weight, something that requires redemption to recover. Remember, 7 seals protect the document. What's inside must be proportional to that protection. We're starting to see why. If this pattern is correct, then humanity lost something in the fall beyond spiritual communion. Dominion, authority, legal standing. And that loss created a document, a record of what was forfeited, a registry of terms for recovery, a deed waiting for someone qualified to claim it, the sealed scroll. Now we need to understand who can open such a document. Israel had a law called the law of the kinsman-redeemer. It's in Leviticus 25. It's illustrated in the book of Ruth, and it has implications far beyond ancient property transactions. The Hebrew word is goel, redeemer, rescuer, the one who buys back, the one who restores what was lost. Ruth's story shows the system in action. Naomi had lost everything: land, husband, sons, future. She returned to Israel empty, bitter, hopeless. Ruth, her Moabite daughter-in-law, went to glean in Boaz's fields, and Boaz happened to be a relative, a potential goal. But there was a complication. There was a closer relative he had first right of redemption. Boaz couldn't act until that relative made his choice. And that closer relative, he declined. He had the right. He probably had the resources. But he didn't want the cost, the complications, the responsibility. He publicly removed his sandal, the legal symbol of declining redemption rights, and stepped back. Only then could Boaz act. Only when the first declined could the second claim. The pattern is unmistakable. Having the right doesn't guarantee action. Willingness is its own requirement. Here's how it worked systematically. If an Israelite fell into poverty and lost his land to debt, the land wasn't gone forever. It could be recovered, redeemed, bought back. But not by just anyone. Not by a generous stranger. Not by a wealthy patron who felt compassionate. Only by a close relative who met 3 specific requirements. 3 requirements. All 3. No exceptions. First requirement, kinship. The Redeemer had to be family. Blood relation, genetic connection. You couldn't go to the marketplace and ask a stranger to buy your inheritance. Didn't matter how wealthy they were. Didn't matter how willing they were. No kinship, no right to redeem. That's the law, that's the boundary. The inheritance had to stay in the family. The bloodline mattered. Second requirement, price. Wanting to redeem wasn't enough. Having good intentions wasn't enough. Feeling compassion wasn't enough. The Redeemer had to be able to pay the full price. No discounts, no payment plans. If the debt was 100 shekels, you needed 100 shekels. If it was 1,000, you needed 1,000. Love without resources redeems nothing. Compassion without price recovers nothing. Harsh, but legal, and legal systems don't negotiate with feelings. Third requirement, willingness. Here's what makes it personal. Having the right and the resources wasn't enough. The kinsman had to choose to redeem voluntarily, without coercion. No one could force a relative to redeem. If he decided not to, that was his right. The law permitted it. It wasn't sin, but the property was lost. In Ruth's story, there's a closer relative than Boaz. He has first right, probably has resources, but he doesn't want the cost. He declines publicly. Only then can Boaz act. The pattern is clear. Right doesn't guarantee action. Willingness is required. If any of the three requirements was missing, the property was lost permanently. No appeal, no second chance, gone from the family forever. Now look at the scroll in God's hand with these legal eyes. Back to the throne room, the crisis moment. John is in heaven. He's seen extraordinary things in the previous chapters. God's throne blazing with light. 24 elders on 24 thrones. 4 living creatures covered with eyes, crying, "Holy, holy, holy." A sea of glass like crystal. Lightning and thunder proceeding from the throne. Everything glory, everything power, everything majesty beyond human description. John has been caught up in worship, caught up in wonder. The visions have been overwhelming. And then he sees the scroll in God's right hand, the hand of executive authority, the hand that acts and executes. Sealed, 7 seals, waiting. And a strong angel, probably one of the archangels given the description, makes a proclamation that echoes through the entire universe, a proclamation that reaches every corner of creation. Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals? Revelation 5:2. The angel's voice is described as great, megas in Greek, loud, commanding. This isn't a whisper, this is a universal summons. The word worthy is key. Greek, axios. It doesn't ask who's powerful enough, doesn't ask who's authoritative enough, doesn't ask who wants to. It asks who is worthy, who qualifies, who has legal standing. This is a search for credentials, an invitation to present qualifications, a call for someone, anyone, to demonstrate they meet the requirements. But here's a question that stays suspended. If heaven is full of powerful beings, angels, archangels, seraphim, why can't any of them solve this? Why isn't power enough? That question will reveal something crucial about redemption, something that changes how we understand the cross. But first, let's see what happens in the search. The search results come back, and they're devastating. And no one in heaven, or on the earth, or under the earth, was able to open the scroll, or to look at it. Revelation 5:3. No one. In all of existence, in all of history, in all of creation, in heaven, angels, seraphim, cherubim, archangels, millions of celestial beings who have served God since before time, none qualified. Why? If the goal system applies, the answer is clear. They're not kin to humanity. They don't share our blood. They weren't born of woman. They don't carry human DNA. An angel, no matter how powerful, how holy, how ancient, cannot redeem what a human lost. Not family. Doesn't meet the first requirement. Power isn't the problem. Kinship is. On earth, patriarchs like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, prophets like Moses, Elijah, Isaiah, priests, kings, righteous people from every generation. None qualified. Why? They're human. They meet the first requirement, but they're fallen humans, heirs to the same debt that needs payment, debtors themselves. You can't pay for others when you yourself owe. It's like asking someone drowning in debt to pay off someone else's mortgage. They don't meet the second requirement. They don't have the price. Under the earth, all the dead, from Abel to the last person who died before this vision, none. Death hadn't changed their condition. Still fallen humans, still without the price. Dying doesn't generate resources for redemption. The text presents a crisis, not emotional crisis, not dramatic tension for storytelling purposes. Legal crisis, judicial impasse. If no one qualifies, the document stays sealed. The terms of redemption exist, written inside, but they can't be executed. And what was lost stays lost, legally, permanently. No expiration date. The question about power stays open. Why can't beings as powerful as angels solve this? The answer is coming, and it will reveal something crucial about how redemption actually works. If this detail seems strange to you, if you never thought of Revelation 5 as a courtroom, leave a comment with one word: scroll. I want to see how many noticed that the text describes a legal document, not just a mysterious book. John understood what was at stake, and his reaction proves it. So I wept much because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. Revelation 5:4. The Greek phrase is ekleon poly, intense weeping, prolonged, not quiet tears. This is John, the beloved disciple, the one who leaned on Jesus' chest at the Last Supper, the one who stood at the cross when everyone else fled, the one who survived persecution, exile, attempted execution, a man who had seen everything, endured everything, witnessed miracles that defied nature, and he weeps, convulsively, because a document can't be opened. John's weeping wasn't sentimentality, wasn't emotional weakness, wasn't drama. It was comprehension. He understood the legal system. He probably knew the goal laws. He grasped the implications. If no one qualifies as kinsman-redeemer, the property is lost. Permanently. No recourse, no second chance. Applied to cosmic scale, if no one qualifies, humanity remains in permanent legal limbo. No redemption possible. No hope of recovering what Adam forfeited. The scroll would stay sealed forever. The terms of redemption would exist, written inside, but never executed. John's tears were the tears of someone watching the end of all hope, the final closure of every possibility. But then, at precisely that moment of total despair, something changes. But one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals." Revelation 5:5. Don't weep. There's hope. There's someone. The Lion of Judah. Messianic title. Genesis 49:9-10. Jacob's prophecy about the royal tribe. The Root of David. Another messianic title. Isaiah 11:1-10. The descendant who would be more than descendant. Someone has prevailed. Someone qualifies. Someone can open the scroll. But what John sees next isn't what he expected. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, which of the 3 requirements seems hardest to fulfill: kinship, price, or willingness? It's not a religious question. It's a legal question from the text itself. Because each requirement has its own complexity, and understanding why all 3 matter helps explain why no one qualified. Kinship seems simple until you realize that angels, perfect, holy, powerful beings, don't qualify. Power doesn't substitute for family. Price seems achievable until you realize all humans are in debt. You can't pay with what you don't have. Willingness seems obvious until you realize no one was stepping forward to pay the cost. Ruth's closer relative preferred not to redeem. Willingness isn't automatic. All 3 together. No exceptions. That's the barrier. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne, and of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes. Revelation 5:6. Read that again. Expected a lion, saw a lamb. Expected conquering strength, saw sacrifice marks. Expected a warrior, saw a victim. The Greek word for slain is sphazo, slaughtered, throat cut, with visible marks of death. The lamb stands as though slain, not freshly killed, but with marks present, scars from the cross, evidence of what it cost. Why does the text present the conqueror as victim? Why does the lion appear as lamb? Why are death marks relevant for opening a legal document? Because if the goal system applies, the right to redeem doesn't come from military power, doesn't come from brute force, doesn't come from violent conquest. It comes from legal qualification, from meeting requirements, from paying the price. The lamb doesn't conquer the scroll, he claims it, by right, by what he paid. Look at how the text suggests he meets all three requirements. First requirement, kinship. The Word became flesh, John 1:14. Not angel, not apparition, human, born of woman, Galatians 4:4. Human DNA, human blood, human body that felt hunger, thirst, exhaustion. The text presents Jesus as human, fully human, relative, family, brother. Hebrews 2:17 says, "Therefore in all things he had to be made like his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest." Had to be, not optional, not preference, necessity, requirement. The pattern suggests incarnation wasn't just for emotional identification, it was legal requirement. Without humanity, no right to redeem. Second requirement, price. A life without debt, without sin, without disqualifying stain. Hebrews 7:26. Holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners. Hebrews 4:15. Was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. 2 Corinthians 5:21. Him who knew no sin. The text presents Jesus as someone who owes nothing, who didn't inherit Adam's debt the same way, who lived without accumulating personal debt. He has the price. His life has redemption value. He's not in spiritual bankruptcy like the rest of humanity. Third requirement, willingness. John 10:17-18. Therefore my Father loves me because I lay down my life that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. Voluntary, not forced, not coerced, not victim of circumstances. Philippians 2:7-8. Made himself of no reputation. He humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death. Himself, his decision, his choice. The text presents Jesus choosing. Every step toward the cross was decision. Every moment of suffering was voluntarily accepted. The Lamb qualifies, not because he's powerful, though the text presents him with 7 horns, fullness of power, because he meets the legal requirements that the redemption system itself demands. Kinsman has the price, willing. And here the second question we left open gets answered. Why did the search fail across all creation? Why wasn't power enough? Because redemption isn't a power problem, it's a rights problem. It's not solved with angelic armies, it's solved with legal qualification. Angels have power but aren't relatives. Humans are relatives but don't have the price. The dead have neither. Only someone who was both, God to have the price, man to be kinsman, could qualify. The Lamb isn't worthy despite being slaughtered. He's worthy precisely because he was slaughtered. The death marks are his credentials. The sacrifice is his qualification. That's why the lion appears as lamb. The power is there, 7 horns. But the worthiness comes from sacrifice, as though slain. When the lamb takes the scroll, heaven reacts. And the reaction reveals everything about what just happened. Now, when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each having a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song, saying, You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth. Revelation 5:8-10. They fall down, prostrate, complete worship. The Lamb just did something worthy of the highest honor creation can offer, and then they sing a new song, something that has never been sung before, because what just happened has never happened before. Listen to the words of the song, their legal language dressed as worship, court terminology set to music, worthy, Greek, axios, qualified, deserving, meeting requirements, not just powerful, not just glorious, not just impressive, legally qualified, having standing to act. For you were slain. The sacrifice is the basis of worthiness, not strength, not rank, not authority by position. Sacrifice, price paid, cost absorbed, have redeemed us by your blood, Greek, agorazo, to purchase in the marketplace, to acquire with payment, a commercial transaction term, a legal exchange word. The blood isn't just symbolic, it's currency, it's redemption payment, it's what validates the transaction, it's the price that satisfies the legal requirements. Out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, universal scope, not limited to Israel, not limited to one ethnicity, not limited to one era. Everyone purchased by the price is included in redemption. The scope matches the scale of what was lost. Made us kings and priests. We shall reign on the earth. The end goal. Restored dominion. Recovered authority. Humanity's original position returned. And there's something more the text suggests. Something that changes how we read the rest of Revelation. Something most commentaries miss. When the seals open, it's not just information revealed. It's not like opening an envelope and reading a letter. It's not passive revelation. Something is executed. Something is activated. Something is set in motion. Each seal broken is a step toward recovery. Each judgment described is part of evicting the illegitimate occupant. Each trumpet, each bowl, each catastrophic event is part of executing the document's terms. Think about it. If this is a redemption document, a deed for property recovery, then opening it isn't just reading what's inside. It's initiating the process of reclaiming what was lost. The seals aren't just security measures, they're stages. 7 stages of a legal process. 7 steps toward complete recovery. Revelation from this legal reading isn't just destruction, isn't just chaos, isn't just the end of the world, as popular imagination pictures it. It's execution of a redemption document, legal process for property recovery, cosmic eviction of the usurper who held the deed illegally. The judgments aren't arbitrary vengeance. They're not God throwing a tantrum. They're legal steps toward restoration of what was lost. Necessary actions to remove the one who claimed authority he was never meant to keep. Every seal, every trumpet, every bowl moves the process forward, toward the moment when the original owners reclaim what was always meant to be theirs. If this reading is reordering something inside you, write, worthy. Not for spam, just to mark the exact point where the text shifts. Because there's a moment in Revelation 5 where everything turns, where weeping becomes singing, where crisis becomes celebration. And that turn isn't emotional, it's legal. Someone qualified, someone can claim, someone has rights. And when someone has rights, the process can begin. Now, without closing anything, just questions. This matters. The questions that follow don't have easy answers. And maybe that's the point. If heaven presents redemption as a legal case, what does that imply about the kind of accusations that the text assumes exist? Think about it. If there's a trial, there are charges. If there's legal redemption, there's documented debt. The text seems to assume a case exists against humanity. What exactly is that case, and before what court is it presented? If no one in heaven could open it, what does that reveal about why the solution couldn't come from spiritual power, but had to come from kinship? Angels have power. They have holiness. They have access to God, but they don't qualify. Why is the system designed this way? Why did the solution have to come from a relative rather than a more powerful being? If the document is in God's right hand, why does the text make it depend on worthiness rather than force? God has all power. He could have opened the scroll himself, could have declared redemption by decree, but he doesn't. He waits for someone to qualify. Why does the process matter as much as the result? And if the seals aren't just information but execution, what are we misinterpreting when we read judgment without seeing recovery? Most read Revelation as destruction, judgments falling, catastrophes striking. But if the seals are legal steps of recovery, does that change the nature of the judgments? Are they punishment or eviction process? Why did Israel's legal system have a kinsman-redeemer law centuries before Revelation, as if something was being prepared? The Goel law existed long before Christ, long before Revelation. Coincidence or design? Was God establishing legal vocabulary he would later use on cosmic scale? Why does the lamb have to be as though slain to qualify, death marks on a living being? He rose, he's alive, but the marks remain. Why? Are they evidence of payment? Proof that the price was real? Permanent reminder of redemption's cost? I leave these questions open, because the text itself doesn't permit quick answers, and quick answers to deep questions are usually the most dangerous. The text has layers. Some layers require time to process. What looks simple on the surface has depth underneath. What looks like drama has legality. What looks emotional has juridical structure, and that structure isn't accidental, it's design. The same God who established the Goel law in Leviticus is the one who presents the scroll in Revelation. The vocabulary is consistent, the pattern is recognizable, the connection is undeniable. Coincidence? The text doesn't let us conclude that easily. But the alternative, deliberate design, has enormous implications. Let me close with what the text does allow us to affirm, not interpretations, not forced applications. What the text says. There's a scroll sealed with 7 seals, written inside and out. In God's right hand, the format matches ancient legal documents, property deeds, redemption records. There was a search across all creation, heaven, earth, under the earth. No one qualified. The crisis was real. John wept. Not for drama, from understanding what it meant. A lamb appeared, with sacrifice marks, with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Lion announced, lamb revealed. Heaven declared him worthy, not for power, for sacrifice, for blood, for legal qualification. That's what the text says. What it implies is another conversation, but if the pattern is correct, if this is a legal case and not just celestial drama, then there are implications we can't ignore. Implications that reach into how we understand everything. Redemption would have juridical basis, not just sentimental, not just emotional, not just God decided to forgive. Documentary, legal, with terms and conditions, with requirements that had to be met, with a price that had to be paid. The cross becomes more than moving sacrifice. It becomes legal transaction, payment of debt, satisfaction of requirements, transfer of rights. The future would have documentary guarantee. Not just vague hope, not just pious wishes, not just, we hope everything works out. A document in process of execution, a legal process that can't be stopped once initiated. Access to that redemption would depend on a redeemer who qualifies. Not human effort, not personal merit, not religious performance. Someone who meets requirements no one else can meet. Someone whose qualifications are verified by heaven itself. Your standing before God becomes a legal question, not just an emotional one. Are you covered by the payment? Are you included in the redemption? Are you under the Lamb's claim? And the enemy's accusations, whatever they are, would have legal response. Not just God forgives you, but the price was paid, the case is closed. That changes everything. Changes how you face guilt, changes how you respond to accusation, changes how you understand your standing before God. You're not waiting for a verdict. The verdict was already given. The scroll was taken by someone who qualifies, and what he takes, no one takes from him. The scroll that made John weep still exists within the text's framework. The question is whether we understand what it represents, a legal document holding the terms of cosmic redemption, and whether we understand who's the only one who can open it, the Lamb who was slain, the kinsman who paid the price, and what it means that he already took it. The process has begun. The seals are being opened. The execution is underway. In the next video, we'll explore what happens when the seals start breaking. The four horsemen. Are they destruction or the first stages of the recovery process? Arbitrary judgment or legal steps of eviction? Catastrophe or reclamation? The text has more layers than it appears, and each layer reveals something the surface hides. Each seal reveals something about the nature of redemption that most teaching misses. Until then, the question remains open. If heaven treats the scroll as a legal case, what changes in how we read all of Revelation? And what changes in how we understand our own standing before the cosmic court? I don't have all the answers, but the questions are too important to ignore. The text is there. The patterns are visible. The connections are hard to deny. A legal document, a redemption system, one who qualifies. That's what Revelation 5 presents. Not drama, law, not celestial theater. Cosmic courtroom. And if that's true, then the cross wasn't just emotional sacrifice. It was legal transaction, price payment, requirement fulfillment. And your standing before God doesn't depend on how you feel. It depends on whether you're covered by the payment of the only one who qualifies. What you do with that is your decision. Peace be with you.